Hello and welcome. You're listening to Your Moving Mind. I have a whole list of subjects that I would like to talk about and that are worthy of an episode, but I somehow find that talking to myself, just me alone in front of the computer, is kind of boring. So I've invited my friend and colleague, Christine Germain, to join me for a few episodes and make them just a little bit more conversational. If it works well, we can just keep going, right? And this is the first one of those episodes, and we're going to talk about how we deal with pain in the very particular way we have with the Feldenkrais Method to address pain, to deal with pain, to treat pain, to find ways to reorganize our lives in a way that doesn't include pain anymore. You're listening to Your Moving Mind, the meeting point of movement and mindfulness, and everything in between. Move your mind your movement, with your host, Michael Landau. Before diving into today's episode, let me tell you about mindful movement every day. I've recently created a 5-day course that takes you through the process I developed in the last few years. This course, Mindful Movement Every Day, is so far completely free. It leads you through 5 daily movement sessions. You slow down, you pay attention, you explore yourself for a few minutes, and you improve. Mindful Movement Every Day doesn't only give you 5 days of mindful movement, it teaches you how to keep doing it for a short moment every day. I don't know how long it will stay free of charge, so don't wait too long. Go to persistent-growth.com and sign up. Start moving mindfully today, and you'll never want to stop doing it. persistent-growth.com. And I'll see you in mindful movement every day. Hello, I'm Michael Landau.
Hello, I'm Christine Germain.
And this is Your Moving Mind. And today we're going to talk about pain. It is something that keeps coming up in our world. Many people come to us, to Feldenkrais practitioners, initially because something hurts. So pain is an issue. It is a call to action for many of us. I mean, we can do our lives and keep doing what we know how to do, and it works fine as long as it works until it stops working. And then we have to take a look, which is what we do with the Feldenkrais method, with our practice of mindful movement, right?
Yeah.
We make a choice of looking into what we do, what our habitual patterns are, and how we can change them. And if there's pain, you're more inclined and you have more motivation to change.
Yeah, unfortunately, sometimes we wait for too long, right?
And it's a pity that we have to wait for pain in order to change something, because it would be probably better if we started changing or never stopped learning, improving, evolving.
Yes.
Before pain.
I had this conversation just recently with a friend on how I was living in California for about 14 years, and coming back to living in Canada, in Quebec on the East Coast, the culture about health is different from what I perceive. It seems like in California, I was in North California around the Bay Area, San Francisco, and the people I was around seemed to have, and even like clients that would come to me, people I didn't know, not necessarily my community, there seemed to be a culture of taking care of yourself and in prevention. And people don't feel necessarily scared of spending money on investing in their health. And coming back to Quebec, there's a there seemed to be a different approach where people, well, the wealth is a little different, the average income is definitely different. However, from what I observed coming here as a Feldenkrais practitioner after 14 years being away, is it seems like even dancers won't, where their health is important, and there's a fear of like putting money to get better, or even to prevent. So there are people that will have a practice, and I don't want to generalize, but that's what I'm observing. So being a Feldenkrais practitioner in Quebec, perhaps also people are less exposed to different practices or different workshops on health, whereas California has a lot to offer, and there was a lot that was there. And I'm questioning that, like, how is that culture coming from? We do have healthcare here. Is that does that have an impact? I don't know, but it's definitely something I sense to be different in terms of waiting until it gets on, really, like, can't take it anymore before people take action. And
Yeah.
of course, in the dancer world, or athletes are often pushed to ignore their pain so that they can continue their contract. And it's like the culture is changing in that route, whether it's United States or Canada. Still, it's still there underneath, because it's been so long to keep, people are like, no, you gotta push through. And there's some, when you're trying to improve a skill, of course you're gonna get to push through, and there's a good pain that feels good and feels like you've achieved something. And then the importance of finding, like, what is the bad pain that's actually, if you continue practicing that skill with that level of discomfort, you could actually irritate something for more damage, that bring damage, long-term damage. So I was lucky enough to have dance teacher that were telling us, okay, as soon as you have a little thing that doesn't feel quite right, you just get it checked in to make sure, like, it won't evolve into something more that could impact your career. So that was a good culture to have as a young dancer. But the general culture who doesn't learn how to feel, and our sensory system is pushed on screen a lot, so we don't sense ourselves as much as we used to, I think. And that can impact how people take action or not. That's a perspective, just yeah.
Yeah. I think it is a cultural thing. It is very evident to me now. I've been living in Chile, South America, for the last 20 some years, and people here don't have the habit or the inclination, or they are not prepared to invest in self-care and in exploring themselves. I think it goes beyond prevention. I mean, yeah, you can do things to prevent pain, prevent illness
Yeah.
before the event, which is the medical system, I think, everywhere is pretty bad at that. I mean, it is not really health system, the official healthcare system, I think pretty much everywhere, has to do with sickness, not with health, really. So you get treated when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
But the inclination of people to invest in themselves goes beyond prevention. I'm thinking of transformation, improvement, becoming better in whatever, as a person, even more than in your specific field.
Yeah.
And Yeah, here in Chile, it really doesn't exist. I had a lot of trouble being a Feldenkrais teacher in Chile because it's like I'm speaking a different language that nobody speaks. I really had to start from scratch, explaining, I don't know, like calling people's attention to what is out there, what they can do for themselves and don't. It is just completely out of their world of perception, so they don't know it exists. And it's
Yeah,
different
interesting.
from our neighbor Argentina, where there are many more Feldenkrais practitioners, but there's a lot more therapy, analysis is very strong in Argentina. It's like a different culture. You cross the Andes,
Yeah.
and the people know that that they should take care of themselves. It means something. You talk of self-care. You talk about um, any way of improving, either in movement or in therapy or in any spiritual way. It is much more present, and the difference is noticeable. Like I grew up in Tel Aviv, where the Feldenkrais method was born, and there's a Feldenkrais studio in every street corner. So because there are many Feldenkrais teachers, but it's an expression of what's out there. It is not just
Mm-hmm.
Feldenkrais. There are a lot of studios of yoga, of martial arts, of anything you can think of that has to do with movement that you do not to heal from an injury, but to take care of yourself and to be in movement and to improve. So
Yeah.
there is a whole world out there before pain, and
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
many people, if they're enslaved by the health system, unless something goes seriously wrong, they just don't know that there is a possibility to do anything
Yeah.
in
And
this
I think,
area.
yeah, and I think for people who are new to this, to the Feldenkrais method or this philosophy or interest, it does come. I mean, Moshe Feldenkrais was inspired a lot by judo and Asian, where, you know, the Asian practice of medicine is really a lot to do with prevention. So that might have you know, definitely has an influence there. And I remember there's like this scoop of a movie where this guy is in China and is telling his French friend how over there the acupuncturist, the medicine of China is like he's really making sure that you don't feel sick. So they go before you actually get sick, so you don't. It's just not only extinguishing fire, you actually prevent it. And I don't want to generalize either, because my approach, like being in Montreal where people are more exposed, is very different than in Quebec City, where even like my online classes don't work so well in the French community. When I do my English online lesson on pain, I have a lot of people from the States. Of course, I was there before, maybe I'm more known there, but when I start in French, and you could think, well, they're going to have a winter, they wouldn't have to drive, maybe that's better to do it online. And that hasn't happened as much for me in the French in the French community. However, I know I found out that someone a little bit outside of the big city, like in a small community north of Quebec, there's this woman who has 10 Feldenkrais classes a week that are really full. So not to not to generalize in terms of culture. I'm not saying that all Quebec is like that, but I was mainly sharing my experience. But I think culturally we do, there are influences of of what is there. And I think what's really powerful about this work is the empowerment of, you know, what you were saying. How can we support people who do want to do this to be empowered and know themselves better, so that they become a participant in their health rather than a patient? So, and for me, that's changed my life. But also now, teaching dance students in dance conservatory and universities, I feel privileged to be able to provide that to them. And it's super interesting, the feedback. For example, like 2 years ago, I'm teaching this lesson on exaggerating the pattern. So a lot of bringing awareness to these micro patterns we have in our habits, and like slowing down and bring mindfulness brings you like aware of, oh, I'm doing this, and this like 20-year-old dancer is like, I'm actually creating my own pain. And like, and then another one saying, oh, this is actually a philosophy for life. And like, you have these like things that emerge that are way deeper than where the pain comes from. Or and it was beautiful, because then that was the first class. And then after, it's like, once they've discovered that it can be a philosophy for life, and that they're somewhat responsible in their habits to create some pain or injuries that they might have. I'm not saying that's always the case. We can have trauma, we can have like accident that happen, but that can definitely give you tools to move away from pain and manage when that happens. So, and that's what I love. And Dennis Larry, the director of my program in Feldenkrais, when I studied Feldenkrais, said, you know, if you want to be acknowledged or credited for the work you do, you're in the wrong field. Because when you teach Feldenkrais, you're teaching people to figure out those things by themselves, and they won't necessarily make the link with the fact that you created the environment for them to figure it out. And I think it's true. And that brings up to, you know, talking with my mom last night, where I came back from California, and she's like, she's a very active person in her 70s, and she's like, I can't walk anymore, I'm always having pain. And then she pushes through. It's also not only culturally, I think it's also a generational practice. And she's like, no, I'm pushing through. And she's like, I'm gonna have pain now because I'm getting older, and all those like limiting beliefs that, yeah, I'm getting older and I have arthritis and osteoporosis, so it's gonna be like that. And she doesn't want to stop walking, so she keeps walking on the pain. And knowing now what we know about neuroplasticity, I'm like, Mom, you're actually training your brain to walk in pain. And even if it were to heal, you're creating neural pathways that are not going to serve you. And she did physical therapy, she did all these, and she would, you know, she stretched before and after her hike or a walk, but still in pain. And I was like, I'm not taking your arthritis or your osteoporosis as an excuse. You can get better. And she came to my online classes, and I did some one-on-one lessons with her. And that's 3 years ago. That was, yeah, right in the beginning of the pandemic. She now walks without pain. And I checked in with her last night. Sometimes it will be a little stiff the first few minutes, but she walks sometimes 2 hours a day. She go up 315 stairs several times a week. So to keep strong and healthy, she had heart problem in the past, so she wants to make sure she keeps her cardio. But that's pain-free, and yet she'll recall that the physical therapist, which she was seeing before we did the Feldenkrais work together, she'll relate it to the fact that she saw the physical therapist and she did her exercises. So she's really proud of that. And I'm proud of her too. And that she stretches before and after. And she thinks, or she still focuses on those areas that she's doing, right? It brings something when we're doing and when we're a doer. And I'm like, well, you were doing these things before we worked together. Like, and do you remember that you were saying that it was because of arthritis and osteoporosis? Those are not gone. Those are, we don't do miracles, like, but you've learned how to move. And I've actually worked a lot on helping her moving more the upper rib cage so that the hips wouldn't do all the work. And so we've released a lot in the upper body, which, and I'm not saying the physical therapy didn't do a good job. She does have a good physical therapist. But the thing is that a lot of the people will often relate their success to something that they've worked hard towards. And we're totally counterintuitive of what we teach is that, no, you need to let go of other things. Like she needed to let go her ribs and her chest so that because that area was stiff, then the lower part of her body had to overwork. And when we distribute the effort, then that was way more distributed. That means the hips didn't have to work so hard. And now she's changed the way she walks. And then her upper body is more participant in the movement. So the hips are less paying for it. And she understands that when we do the classes, but when it comes to talk about, no, I have no more pain, she doesn't always make the link. And that's not just, I'm saying it by mom, I'm saying it with, like, I'm seeing that with other clients who've come back to me. They've learned how to be independent in rolling on their own, even though they're on a wheelchair. And then they come back from seeing a professional, I would say mainstream conventional approach where, no, you're weak here, you have weak muscles. She comes back, she lost her autonomy because she's thinking she needs to be more strong to work from side to on her back on the bed. And I'm like, no. And then we had to spend another 45 minutes to get her back to her autonomous self, which she had before. She didn't get stronger in 45 minutes. She got wiser. She got smarter in how she worked, and she worked with her environment. So, yeah, I think, yes, pain, yes, but how do we change and help people change their perspective on where pain comes from, how you get out of pain? And the answer is not always work harder. You need to work smarter.
Yeah, I think it is very often invisible, the improvement that you do our way, because it is so not corrective. It is, we don't tell anybody what to do and what they're doing wrong. So then they go to the specialist, and the specialist says you have to strengthen this muscle, and they give them exercise, and they do the exercise, and they think, okay, I strengthened the muscle, this is what worked. And they go to a Feldenkrais practitioner, and they change the way they move on a very profound level. The changes occur at the backsides of our brains. It's not a conscious change. It's not that you understand what you should do differently and you keep correcting yourself.
Yeah.
You change your brain, your basic, fundamental brain patterns. And people are not trained to notice this, so they don't really know what changes. Yeah, I remember my mother that used to go to Gabi Yaron, who was a neighbor. She lived around the corner. With the first years of Gabi's practice, she's one of the first Feldenkrais students of his first group of practitioners, and she would say, "I don't know what Gabi is doing. I come to her with a neck pain, and she plays with my big toe, and then the neck pain is gone. Magic." Yeah, so we don't know what to do with this kind of information. She had no idea what changed.
Yeah.
Really.
And it's interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think there is a distinction that is important when talking about pain. When there is trauma, injury, something goes wrong. You want to go to a good medical doctor, and they are very good at it. They will fix your bone if it's broken. They will take out your appendix if it needs to be taken out. They will save your life. So don't go to any other woo practitioner that does other things. They know what to do in an emergency. But really, traditional medicine is very poor in relating to chronic pain. And chronic pain, I mean, if somebody goes with a back pain for years, months, or years, or decades, they would be sent to take some kind of an image, and somebody would tell them, the doctor would tell them they have a bulging disc or something of that kind, that it is already pretty clear that the state of your discs and what you can see in imagery is not one-to-one related to pain. The chronic pain is a brain pattern. It is something that has become part of you. So it may have started with an injury, with some very specific event, but when it lingers over time, probably the original injury has been healed, or there is some signs of age in your body. I mean, if you look closely, you will see them in people with pain and in people without pain. They're there for sure, but they can give you painkillers or offer a surgery that sometimes helps and sometimes doesn't. But traditional medicine has no relationship with how we organize ourselves to act and to be in the world and to hold ourselves upright and just to move around and be people in the long run, and how these patterns, these habits, these are habitual patterns that we have learned at a very early age, and we keep using them, and they can be changed.
And I just want to reiterate, I just want to reiterate that, like, if you do have pain and you're concerned, you still should seek medical advice. We're not saying that, and we're generalizing here, right? Because there's medical in different countries, different countries have different medical system. And so we're not saying to not seek medical advice, but in the long term, to prevent, I think it's important to learn how to like Michael is saying, how to reorganize yourself the best you can so that you prevent further injuries. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm not suggesting we should replace doctors. By no means.
I just wanted to make it,
They do a great job. What I'm saying is that what we offer, this way of working with our patterns of behavior and being able to change them by learning is something that is apart from the medical world. It is just not part of it. It is something completely different, a different approach that can be very useful to reduce or get rid of chronic pain, of pains that linger over time. Because any chronic pain, even when there is some very specific physical damage, it has become a brain pattern. It is something you live
Yeah.
with. And it means that your behavior, your daily behavior, your daily movements include that pain. And very often, not always, if you change something, some things, and we have the skill to help people change them, those basic patterns of behavior, and you create a pattern that is a little improved, a little different, it may not include necessarily that pain. With the same body, I mean, we don't change the body, but we can change how we relate to it and how we use it in new ways that may be pain-free. This is
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
claiming. Not trying to replace any doctor. Go to your doctor, do what they tell you.
Yeah, and I think that's the part is that we're educational practice in it. I think education can be therapeutic because it empowers you. We're not called a therapy, we're called like somatic educators. So the idea is that you learn about yourself to improve. And what happened is a lot of the mainstream conventional approach is focusing on the problem and the pain that you have if we're even before chronic pain. So the pain is real. If you improve a part of the system, the whole system improves. So that's why we'll often, Michael was talking about, when you were talking about the big toe and she has a problem in the neck, when we improve a part of the system, the whole system improves. So people will be confused sometimes when someone comes to their hip on their knee and I'm helping moving the spine and bringing awareness to what is the pattern in the thoracic spine when they came with a pain in their lower body, not knowing that, well, there's fascia, there's connective tissue that relates everything there that could be. And the thing is that when you focus on the actual problem, your body is smart and it will go in protective mode when we go away and move on, focus on what's working well, then that expands to other parts, and that's true for life in general. So the focusing on what works well, and I've had this even a student who couldn't dance during the pandemic. She does aerial dance, so it's the apparel wasn't available, the studio were not available, and we worked and improved some pain patterns that came up from sitting longer hours. And when she returned to work on her skills, it was easier, it was less effortful, even though she hadn't practiced the actual skill, because she knew herself better. And then she shared with me that what seemed to help is she was no longer in the studio in dancing. She was no longer focusing on the lack. What did she need? What wasn't she good at that she needed to work on? All these things had a psychological impact as well. And suddenly she came back and she focused not on what she was lacking, but what she could do with ease and expand from there. So how much empowerment that is. And then when you start with that, you slowly respect your nervous system in terms of leveling up one step at a time to improve your skill. And then your body can adapt slowly and there's less risks of injury in that way, in my experience, because then you're not jumping. Sometimes I go to yoga classes where there's handstand and I see people jumping, and how could we ease our way in? rather than jump into it, because that's often when the body's not quite ready and you jump into it, and it creates a little, it can bring a dramatic shock to the body, and it's good to have shock sometimes when you're trying to improve a skill, but when you're starting, I think it's worth slowing down and breaking it down and focus on where is the ease.
Yeah,
So
it's a good way to prevent damage also. I mean,
yeah,
you go ambitiously and very strongly right into it when you don't know what you're doing, not well enough.
yeah.
It is easier to get injured.
And we often say, like, step outside your comfort zone. And I'm thinking, how about you expand the comfort zone? And I find that the lessons that of awareness through movement do that. They expand the zone of comfort. You learn how to be sometimes a little bit comfortable, even if it's less comfortable. And that expands, and then you surprise yourself because suddenly that zone has expanded without you pushing or jumping outside of that comfort
Oh
zone.
yeah. I think we have to do another episode on the comfort zone. This is a big
Yes.
theme. But I wanted to tell you something about pain. I made a survey recently. In my membership, Persistent Growth, where I offer a daily practice of 3 minutes. So like do mindful movement, very short, every day.
Yeah.
I don't relate to pain directly because it's a membership. People come from all over the world and just go through the explorations, a different one each day. So it doesn't treat a specific complaint.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I should find out what people are complaining about. People are with pain, and it's when there's pain, it's kind of in the forefront. You want to deal with it before you do anything else. So I made a survey and sent it to my mailing list, and I asked what is your most urgent areas that you would like to tackle with me, like what I was thinking of creating a course, like a more condensed course, not an ongoing practice for specific problems. And the one thing that came as the big winner, neck and shoulder pain, which is not surprising because we are mostly sedentary. We use our phones and our screens quite a lot. It is probably connected. Well, I have my ideas for the upcoming course. Stay tuned for it. But there are some specific things, like, I mean, if you have neck pain, you could probably in an image see that the discs, the vertebrae, there is some imbalance, maybe something is damaged. It is often the case, whether you have pain or not. But there are functional things that we can look into, and we look into in our line of work that are very invisible to people. Like when I talk about the connection between the eyes and the neck. So physically, there's no connection. The muscles are completely unconnected and separate. The muscles that move the eye and the muscles that move the neck and the shoulder area, no relationship really, but they are functionally so they're like one system. So we do this funny thing of moving the eyes in one direction and the head in another direction, or move the shoulders in one direction, the neck in another direction, and the eyes. So you do these separate the movements of these muscles, and you find out that one way is, I mean, if you turn to look one way or the other, it is completely natural and easy. You don't have to think about it. And when you try to do it separately and go in opposite directions, it is much more difficult, and you start tensing and it feels like mind work. How come if the muscles are not connected at all, so they can go wherever they want, right? But the function, we use our neck like a periscope to look. We are very visual. We follow our eyes with our body. So when you just separate it and consciously feel the movement of your eyes separate from the movement of your neck, you are resetting the system. You're giving it some more information. You take this pattern that is completely automatic and very ancient of following your gaze, and you take it apart, and it is like the work of a programmer. You look into the details, you fix little things, and we don't fix by correcting, we fix by paying attention. So we just notice how you move your eyes, how you move your neck, how it is connected, and how you can disconnect it and use them separately. And then you reassemble it and go back to your life. So you still move around following your gaze, but you have maybe upgraded, optimized this automatic system, and it works better. So this is how we work with awareness. You pay attention, you do things in a way that gives your system new information, and you have updated your habitual patterns. And these updated habitual pattern can, and very often becomes pain-free or reduces pain. Just because you change something, and this kind of work changes something in the way you move.
Yeah, and I don't even see those as separate anymore, the eyes and the neck. I even have my students sometimes hold the head of a person while they're lying on the floor in a dance studio, and you just receive the weight of the head of your partner, and you just ask them to move their eyes side to side, and often you'll feel it in their neck, and you'll feel the movement in the back of your head. So to me, there's no separation, but yeah, to have to be able to retrieve those independent movement so that you rewire is really great. And maybe we're going towards the end here, but like my question to people would be also like, when there's this ease, sometimes it also gets really confusing because they don't think it's related, and then suddenly they feel better. And there's this, if you've been identifying with your pain, if it's been there for a long time, it gets really, how would I say, people get confused. There's an impasse that gets there because, oh, suddenly something changed. And it's hard for some people, it's hard to accept. And I see people not coming back when they're getting 90% better, that they'll leave the 10% for some reason. I don't know what kind of safety that is for them, but that might be a question to ask yourself. Because I've been like, sometimes someone, oh, she hasn't been playing the piano for 2 years because she got dystonia. We do one lesson together, hands-on. She texts me, she says, I've been able to play a piece that was technical that I haven't played in 2 years. She doesn't come back. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. We worked. She could get better and improve. So is the pain serving another purpose? And that can be very hard to think about. But I've seen it enough in people who like getting from a stroke, really improving, like astonishingly, like, and I work with a team of acupuncturists, and we're like, wow, like she'll come 2 or 3 times and she emails and she's like, wow, I've been able to move my hand that was paralyzed. and I wonder, like, wow, that's enough for them. Like, why, when do you decide that you're done improving when you could have such a better quality of life to get you, like, to help you at getting 100%? Do you not want to do the work, or is the pain, it like, it can be as simple as getting, you know, workers help, right? If you get a check from that, that could be as simple as that. Or is it something that psychologically has deeper meaning that you need to look into? And I'm not saying that we're, you know, but indirectly that will trigger things that maybe that pain might be hiding. And I don't want to point my finger at anyone here, but I think it's worth checking, because I've seen that, and it makes me sad, because I'm like, this person could be so much better, but they decide to feel the pain. And sometimes we've been trained to not feel, or we've been going through trauma and we don't feel, and suddenly we can feel, or the pain is the only thing we can feel. And then perhaps that served that purpose. So when you're ready to move out of pain, when you know that it's no longer serving a purpose, and maybe you don't know it is until you realize, and that's often unconsciously, but I think that's worth questioning. So
Yeah. Change is scary. Any change is scary. It is threatening. It is, you live with what's familiar. So, and
good point. Yeah.
I think I'm very aware of the transformational potential of this kind of work. And transformation is, you don't just go for it willingly. There's resistance. There's so it's not just about the pain. I mean, when you go through a change that makes you really a different person, it's not something. It's not just the very specific change that happened. It was painful at level 7, and now it's level 5, so it changed. Yeah, but you are different, and that is threatening in itself, and it's not easy. Any journey of transformation is like taking one step and going half a step back. Yeah, and at any point, anybody can decide to stop taking it. It's always a choice.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we don't feel it's a choice when we're in pain, but there are choices within that, because some condition are beyond our, what we can do. If there is an accident or we've been given a neurological condition, it's not necessarily a choice, but what choice do you make within that condition that could improve your well-being within that
I
condition?
didn't mean that the pain is a choice. I mean that what you do with it, and the journey that you take with it, a journey that changes you on the way,
that's a choice.
is a choice that you can,
Yeah.
that you have to choose to take it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that pain is a choice, like you're choosing to have pain. No, that's not what I was saying.
No, but the suffering, or like, how can you navigate towards that? The choice of navigating through it can be, there can be more than one choice in that. Yeah, for sure. You can take pain medication, or you can choose to do maybe a harder route, but that might be more fulfilling and more empowering, if when possible, when you're given the tools. Yeah.
Okay, so before you wrap up, I would like to leave our listeners with something practical, specific you can do right now. So I was talking about the connection between the eyes and the neck. So why don't you just take a moment? You probably have your phone handy. Yeah, we always have it somewhere nearby, unfortunately. And a big part of our day, we are looking into it, probably down there. So your neck is in a strange position. But take a moment to hold your phone. It can be turned off and just focus on it. And then bring it a little closer and try to stay focused. And you may notice that you're doing something with your neck. Yeah, if I try to focus hard, or if there's some small letter that I don't see, I will squint my eyes and probably also move my neck. So do that deliberately, and then keep the eye focus, keep the tension in your eyes, and let go of your neck. See if it's possible. It is tricky. And then do the opposite. Let go of your eyes, rest, maybe even close them, and tense your neck. So you may notice that this is connected, like this, trying to see something that you don't see very well. You do it with your neck. Your neck doesn't help you to see better, but it is connected. So just do both things and disconnect them. So tense your neck without doing anything, with your gaze lazy, kind of unfocused, and do the opposite. Focus on something, maybe your fingers, and let go of your neck. I notice that I tense my neck when I focus. It just happens. But when I pay attention, I can do it differently. I can differentiate. And it does improve the system. It improves the way I use my eyes and use my neck to look around.
May I add something to this?
Of course.
I would add, as you look at your phone, imagine that you're receiving the information rather than you going into the information. So just changing that perspective of how can that information come to you while you stay a little bit more at rest might bring a different type of, receiving.
Yeah, that's a good image to let go of your neck. You don't need to come closer.
Yeah, let go of the unnecessary. Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap up.
Nice
Any
conversation.
closing wisdom before we call it a day?
There is a beautiful quote that I love. It is sometimes credited to a Tibetan quote, Tibetan wisdom, sometimes to an adaptation of a Cherokee First Nation quote. And it says, if you can listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream.
Oh, yeah. Listen to it before it screams.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you, everybody,
Michael.
for tuning in to Your Moving Mind, and see you and hear you next time.
Be well.